What if your strength is just fear wearing armor? Think about it for a moment. Every day, we walk into the world wearing our masks of control. Confident smiles, firm handshakes, measured words. We tell ourselves we are strong because we never break, never cry, never lose. But deep down, beneath the armor, there's a trembling pulse, a silent fear that if we ever stopped pretending to be invincible, the world would see who we really are. You see, modern life has turned strength into a performance. We've been trained to hide exhaustion behind ambition, pain behind productivity, loneliness behind curated happiness. We call it resilience, but sometimes it's just emotional armor forged from fear. The fear of being insignificant, the fear of being hurt, the fear of being seen. But what if the fortress you've built to protect yourself has also become your cage? What if the face you show to the world, calm, unbothered, in control, is actually what is keeping you disconnected from the very life you were trying to live? Niccolò Machiavelli understood this paradox better than anyone. While most saw power as dominance, he saw it as vulnerability disguised. His writings weren't just political. They were psychological, a map of human insecurity. Machiavelli knew that real strength doesn't come from the image of control, but from the courage to face the chaos within. Because the one who can face his own darkness cannot be ruled by anyone else. So ask yourself, is your strength freeing you, or is it just another mask keeping you safe? Before we go deeper, if this message is already resonating with something inside you, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll be the first to know when I release more videos like this. Deep, challenging, and made to awaken something real in you. When people hear the name Machiavelli, they often think of manipulation, deception, and ruthless ambition. But behind the cynical reputation lies something far more human: fear. Not the fear of others, but the fear that lives inside every person who has ever held power, love, or status, and quietly wondered, what will happen when I lose it? Niccolò Machiavelli was not born into privilege. He lived in a turbulent time in Renaissance Italy, a world of collapsing empires, political betrayal, and fragile alliances. He saw firsthand how quickly fortune could turn against even the most powerful rulers. One day you're celebrated, the next you're exiled or forgotten. And in that chaos, Machiavelli began to study people, not their public selves, but their hidden motives, the subtle tremors of fear beneath their displays of confidence. When he wrote The Prince, many thought it was a manual for manipulation. In truth, it was a mirror, a reflection of human nature stripped of illusion. Machiavelli understood that behind every show of dominance lies the desperate desire to survive, to stay relevant, respected, remembered. He saw rulers who pretended to be fearless, yet every decision they made was born from anxiety of losing control, of appearing weak, of being betrayed. They cloaked that fear in strength, in cold calculation, in the mask of authority. But underneath, they were trembling. And that trembling, that inability to face their own fragility, was the beginning of their downfall. To Machiavelli, fear was not evil, it was energy. He wrote that a wise leader should learn to master fear, both his own and that of others. But mastery does not mean suppression. It means understanding its nature, because when fear is denied, it mutates. It becomes pride. It becomes cruel. It becomes the endless hunger to dominate so that no one can ever see your cracks. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in teaching people how to manipulate. It was in exposing how easily we manipulate ourselves. How often do we convince ourselves that we are acting out of reason when in truth, we are driven by insecurity? A ruler lies to himself long before he lies to his people. And a person loses power the moment they try too hard to appear powerful. Now think about your own life. How much of your strength is real, and how much of it is a performance to keep others from seeing what scares you? You push harder, speak louder, control more tightly, not because you are certain, but because uncertainty terrifies you. The corporate leader hiding behind authority, the influencer curating perfection, the parent pretending to know all the answers. All of them live inside the same quiet prison. Machiavelli observed 5 centuries ago. The prison is built not by others, but by the self's refusal to appear vulnerable. In his private letters, Machiavelli often confessed how helpless he felt when stripped of influence. After losing his position in Florence, he was exiled and tortured. The man who once advised princes now wandered the countryside, broken and forgotten. But it was in that collapse, when the illusion of strength was shattered, that he saw the truth most clearly. He wrote, "Fortune blinds the minds of men when she does not wish them to resist her designs." In other words, power deceives us into thinking we are in control. And the moment we cling to that illusion, we become its slaves. Machiavelli learned that power built on fear is fragile because it depends on constant control. But real strength, the kind that cannot be taken away, arises when you stop trying to control how others see you. It's the kind of strength that comes when you no longer need the armor. He saw that those who cling to appearances, whether kings or ordinary people, will always be haunted by the same ghost, the fear of being seen as weak. And as long as that fear rules you, no throne, no success, no relationship will ever make you feel safe. Because deep down, you will always know that your strength exists only as long as no one dares to touch your mask. Every generation creates its own illusion of strength. In Machiavelli's time, it was the image of the fearless ruler, the prince who commanded obedience through fear and cunning. In ours, it's the image of the self-made individual, confident, productive, untouchable. But beneath both masks lies the same hidden weakness, the need to prove power because we secretly feel powerless. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." On the surface, it sounds ruthless, a line repeated by those who mistake intimidation for power. But few read between the lines. Machiavelli wasn't glorifying fear, he was diagnosing dependence. He understood that the one who needs to be feared is already afraid. The need for control is the confession of inner chaos. And the greater the fear of being powerless, the more obsessed we become with controlling others. This illusion has simply evolved. Today, it hides in boardrooms and on social media, in toxic workplaces and influencer culture. The modern alpha posture, the unbothered stoic, the hyper-productive achiever, the relentless winner, is nothing more than the new armor of fear. We live in an age where emotional detachment is sold as wisdom and vulnerability is mocked as weakness. We call it mental toughness. In truth, it's emotional avoidance wrapped in discipline. Look closely at those who constantly assert dominance, the boss who micromanages every detail, the partner who controls every decision, the friend who always needs to win. These are not strong people. They are frightened souls trying to protect themselves from uncertainty. They mistake control for safety because they have never learned to master the one battlefield that truly matters, the mind. Carl Jung understood this paradox intimately. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Fake strength is born from that unconscious, from the parts of ourselves we refuse to face. The childhood fear of rejection becomes adult arrogance. The old wound of humiliation becomes an obsession with success. The buried insecurity turns into manipulation, perfectionism, or emotional withdrawal. And all of it hides under one label, strength. But true strength is something entirely different. It has nothing to prove. It doesn't dominate, it integrates. The truly strong person is not the one who controls others, but the one who no longer needs to. To control others is easy, it requires only fear. To master yourself demands awareness, humility, and pain. Machiavelli, in his own way, pointed to this when he wrote about virtue, a concept often misunderstood. For him, virtue wasn't mere virtue or morality. It was the courage to confront fortune, the unpredictable, uncontrollable chaos of life. A ruler with Vert doesn't run from uncertainty. He adapts to it, learns from it, and transforms through it. That is the seed of real strength, to face what you cannot control without collapsing. The tragedy of modern culture is that it has replaced Vert with vanity. We wear confidence like a costume, while inside we are anxious, overstimulated, and spiritually exhausted. We curate our lives to appear composed, yet we tremble every time silence enters the room. We fear that if we stop achieving, we will disappear. And so we keep fighting battles that don't exist, mistaking performance for purpose. Think about it. The person who truly knows their worth does not need to shout it. The one at peace with themselves doesn't rush to win every argument. The strong mind doesn't defend its identity. It expands it. But the weak mind, the one ruled by its shadow, seeks validation endlessly. It confuses compliance with love, fear with respect, and silence with defeat. It lives in constant tension, seeking to be admired, yet terrified of being seen. This is why Machiavelli's philosophy remains so hauntingly relevant. He exposed how fear, left unexamined, becomes the architect of our own downfall. The leader who rules by fear becomes enslaved by the fear of rebellion. The lover who controls becomes terrified of being abandoned. The achiever who craves admiration becomes dependent on applause. In every case, the mask of power hides the panic of losing it. And yet, both Machiavelli and Jung point toward the same escape: awareness. To see the fear that drives us is to weaken its hold. To look directly at our shadow, the insecurity, the need to appear invincible, is to reclaim the energy we once wasted on control. Because what we don't face within ourselves, we project onto others. We make them enemies, threats, competitors, when in truth, they are mirrors. So here's the question. When the applause fades, when no one is watching, when the armor finally cracks, will you still call yourself strong? The answer to that question will determine whether your strength liberates you or destroys you. Let us be honest, it is easy to look at history as rulers and see their flaws. It's harder to look in the mirror and recognize that same tyranny within ourselves. Because every one of us, in some way, rules an invisible kingdom: our careers, our relationships, our image. And most of us, without realizing it, rule that kingdom through fear. When no one is watching, who are you really? Are you the same confident person you show the world? Or are you quietly collapsing inside the walls you built to seem unshakable? I once met a man who embodied everything society called success. He was the youngest executive in his company. Sharp suit, controlled tone, every word calculated. People admired him. He looked indestructible. But when the office lights went out, he confessed that every morning he woke up with panic, terrified that someone would find out he wasn't as strong as he appeared. His confidence was not powerful, it was armor, and it was suffocating him. We all build that armor. For some, it's an achievement. For others, it's emotional detachment, sarcasm, or constant busyness. It starts innocently, a way to protect ourselves from failure, rejection, heartbreak. But over time, the armor becomes so heavy that we forget how to move without it. We confuse numbness for peace and predictability for safety. Think about the people you know who seem to have it all together, the ones who never show pain, who never lose control. Notice how tired they look when no one's paying attention. Notice how often their smiles don't reach their eyes. They have mastered the art of appearing strong while quietly unraveling behind closed doors. And yet, society rewards them. The corporate world celebrates the hustler who never sleeps. Social media worships the image of the unbothered, perfectly composed individual. But this illusion is expensive. It costs authenticity, connection, and peace. It's a trade where you exchange your soul for applause, and the applause never lasts. You see, fake strength doesn't just fool others. It isolates you from yourself. You become trapped in your own performance, terrified that if you ever drop the act, no one would love what's underneath. So you double down, you work harder, you smile wider, You drown in the noise you've created to avoid the silence that would force you to listen. There's a cruel irony here. The more we try to appear unbreakable, the more fragile we become. When the inevitable cracks appear, when failure, rejection, or grief enter, the mask can't protect us anymore. It shatters. And in that moment, all the years of repression come rushing out like a flood. The collapse you feared becomes unavoidable because you never learned how to bend. This is why some people crumble the moment life stops admiring them. The breakup, the job loss, the rejection. It's not just pain. It's identity death. When your sense of worth depends on the illusion of being strong, any failure feels fatal. You don't lose a job. You lose yourself. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow, the part of ourselves we varied to maintain the image of who we think we should be. The anger you suppress to stay calm. The sadness you ignore to seem positive. The weakness you deny to appear powerful. All of it lives in that shadow, waiting. And the more you deny it, the more it controls you from the dark. You might not be a ruler like Machiavelli's princes, but you still wear the same mask. You fear being seen as too emotional, too uncertain, too human. So you turn every interaction into a performance, at work, in love, even with yourself. You tell people you're fine when you're falling apart. You post motivational quotes while battling quiet despair. You say you're strong, but what you mean is, I'm afraid to fall apart because I don't know who I'll be if I do. But what if falling apart isn't failure? What if it's freedom? Imagine, just for a moment, taking off the armor. No more pretending to be perfect. No more controlling every perception, every outcome. Imagine standing in your truth, trembling, flawed, uncertain, and realizing that nothing collapses. The world doesn't end. People don't disappear. In fact, for the first time, they finally see you. There's a kind of power that comes from being unguarded. It's not loud, it doesn't need validation, it simply is. It's the strength that grows when you no longer need to defend an image. It's the power that comes when you can say, yes, I'm scared. Yes, I'm imperfect. And that's okay. Real strength begins where performance ends. Because no amount of control can substitute for connection, not with others, and certainly not with yourself. So ask yourself again, when no one's watching, when the stage lights go out and the armor falls silent, do you still feel powerful? Or are you finally meeting the person you've been hiding behind your own mask? If that question makes you uneasy, good. Because that's where the truth lives, in the discomfort. In the trembling honesty that doesn't need to impress anyone anymore. That is where freedom begins, in the space where the armor cracks and the light finally gets in. The moment you realize that your armor is also your prison, something shifts. It's quiet at first. A subtle cracking in the illusion you've carried for years. The image of yourself you fought so hard to protect begins to feel heavy, meaningless. The mask no longer fits. You start to see that what you called strength was actually a strategy to avoid pain. And that avoidance has cost you more than the pain itself ever could. This is the beginning of awakening. Not the kind you find in self-help slogans or motivational mantras, but the kind that breaks you open. The kind that forces you to meet yourself without the filters, without the performance. It's not pretty. It's not peaceful. It's raw and destabilizing, but it's real. And that's the only kind of strength that lasts. True strength doesn't start with dominance. It starts with surrender. To surrender doesn't mean to give up. It means to stop fighting reality. To stop running from your fear, your sadness, your uncertainty. To face the very parts of yourself you've been hiding under productivity, perfection, or pride. Because what you resist will persist, but what you face will transform. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That's what this journey demands: consciousness, awareness, the courage to look into your shadow without judgment, the humility to admit that maybe the strength you admired in yourself was built on fear. It begins with honesty, honesty with your pain, Honesty with your limits. Honesty with the lies you tell yourself to keep functioning. When you stop pretending, something miraculous happens. The fear loses its authority. You realize that what you were so terrified of facing is not a monster, but a wound that has been waiting to be seen. And once it's seen, it begins to heal. Think about how many decisions in your life have been made to avoid appearing weak. You took jobs you didn't want, stayed in relationships that drained you, kept silent when you should have spoken, all because you were afraid of what would happen if you revealed your truth. But the irony is, the moment you stop hiding, the world around you adjusts. The people who only loved your mask disappear. The ones who can love your truth remain. And in that reshuffling, you find something that fear could never give you: peace. This is where Machiavelli and Jung meet, two minds separated by centuries, yet orbiting the same truth. Machiavelli studied power in politics. Jung studied power in the psyche. Both discovered that power rooted in fear is temporary. Whether it's the ruler commanding a city or the mind commanding itself, control built on insecurity will always collapse. But power rooted in awareness, the courage to see yourself clearly, cannot be taken away, because it doesn't depend on anything outside of you. To walk this path, you have to unlearn what the world taught you about strength. You have to stop believing that strength means never breaking. You have to stop mistaking numbness for peace. You have to stop chasing validation disguised as love. Real strength looks like vulnerability. It looks like the courage to say, "I don't know." It's the ability to stand in uncertainty without needing to fix or control it. It's crying without shame. It's admitting mistakes without collapsing into guilt. It's choosing truth over image, even when it costs you admiration. The process isn't glamorous. It's the slow dismantling of everything false. It's nights of silence, moments of doubt, old fears resurfacing like ghosts. It's the pain of losing parts of yourself that were never truly you. But every time you sit with that discomfort, instead of running from it, you build a new kind of muscle, the inner strength that doesn't need an audience. And when that strength grows, life changes in subtle but profound ways. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop seeking revenge when misunderstood. You stop chasing people who cannot meet you. You stop fearing the loss of things not meant for you. Instead, you become grounded, centered. You begin to act, not react. You listen more and speak less. You stop trying to convince others, because truth, when embodied, speaks for itself. This is the quiet power that Machiavelli's princes never mastered. The kind of authority that cannot be overthrown, because it is not built on fear of others, but on mastery of oneself. And from that awareness, compassion arises. You begin to see that everyone, even those who seem powerful, is fighting their own unseen battles. You stop judging so quickly, stop comparing, stop competing. You begin to understand that we are all wearing armor for the same reason. We're afraid of being unloved if we show who we really are. But once you've seen your own shadow, you can meet others with empathy instead of judgment. That is the transformation, from control to connection, from fear to freedom, from illusion to authenticity. And it all begins when you decide to stop pretending, not because pretending is wrong, but because it's exhausting. Because you're ready for something real. So take a breath. Feel the armor you've carried for years. It kept you safe once. It served its purpose. Now it's time to lay it down. Not with shame, but with gratitude. Because beneath the armor, beneath the fear, beneath the endless performance, there is someone waiting to be free. And that person is you. There comes a moment when pretending simply stops working. The applause fades, the trophies gather dust, and the image you built with such discipline no longer feels like home. You wake up one day and realize that the mask has fused with your face, and you can't breathe beneath it anymore. That's when you understand. Fake strength protects you from others, but true strength frees you from yourself. We spend so much of our lives protecting an identity we were never meant to sustain. The strong one, the reliable one, the unshakable one. But the truth is, the moments that break us are often the ones that make us real. When the performance collapses, authenticity emerges, raw, trembling, alive. And in that moment of collapse, something sacred happens, the beginning of freedom. Because real strength doesn't come from how much you can carry. It comes from how deeply you can feel without drowning. It's the ability to face heartbreak and not become bitter. To walk through loss and still choose love. To look at your pain and see wisdom staring back. That is what it means to be strong. Machiavelli once wrote that a ruler must learn how not to be good in order to survive. But if he were alive today, perhaps he'd see that survival isn't enough. Survival is fear disguised as strategy. To truly live, one must dare to be vulnerable. Because vulnerability is the birthplace of power. It's the crack where the light enters. It's what makes you unbreakable, not because you never fall, but because you rise differently every time you do. Carl Jung echoed this same truth in his timeless insight. The one who looks outside dreams. The one who looks inside awakes. And awakening, my friend, is the ultimate revolution. It's what happens when you stop living by appearances and start living by truth. When you stop chasing admiration and start cultivating awareness. When you stop hiding your fear and finally let it teach you what courage really means. So let the armor crack, let it fall. Let the world see the light underneath. You don't owe anyone the illusion of perfection. You owe yourself the permission to be whole. Because strength isn't the absence of weakness, it's the full acceptance of it. It's knowing that your fragility doesn't make you lesser. It makes you human. And it's in your humanity, not your image, that your power lives. The ones who conquer the world are remembered for a season. But the ones who conquer themselves are remembered forever. So remember Machiavelli's lesson through a new lens. The one who conquers himself is mightier than the one who conquers a city. And remember Jung's whisper through the ages, that everything you've been running from, your fears, your doubts, your pain, they are not your enemies. They are your teachers. If you can stand before them without retreating, you will finally understand what real power feels like. Not dominance, not perfection, but peace. Peace so deep that no opinion, no rejection, no loss can take it away. That's the kind of power the world cannot touch. And maybe, just maybe, that's what you've been searching for all along. Not strength without cracks, but light that shines through them. If this message spoke to you, don't let it fade away with the next scroll. Take a moment, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss another video like this. One that challenges you to see deeper, feel deeper, become deeper. And before you go, leave a comment below. Tell me, what part of this message resonated with you the most? Which truth felt like it was written for you? Because your story might just awaken someone else who's still wearing their armor, waiting for a reason to lay it down.